Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story, a growing threat in America's backyard. Satellite images show Cuba expanding spy facilities. And a new report says they could serve as Beijing's ears if the regime gets a hold of them.
But it's overall pattern of activity that indicates that we're getting deeper and deeper into the Cold War. And
the Treasury trying to cut off the money flow powering fentanyl trafficking. 2 Chinese and 1 Mexican national have been sanctioned for allegedly laundering drug proceeds. Severe flooding continues to plague southern China. Rivers have swollen to 70-year highs. Hundreds of thousands of people now evacuated. And a passageway is closing for Chinese illegal immigrants trying to enter the U.S. Panama just signed a deal with Washington to help shore up the U.S. southern border. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Before we turn to today's top story, we'd like to share an announcement. NTD's original documentary, Hollywood Takeover, China's Control in the Film Industry, is available online. Is it really just about money? Are there other parts at stake?
Chinese influence was playing into what we see in U.S. films.
China said, you can't have that in there. And Hollywood listened.
This is insane.
And we all know that their goal is global domination.
People have been brainwashed without knowing it.
To watch the full documentary, please click the link down below. Spy bases that could tap U.S. military communications expanding in America's backyard. A new report says Cuba has significantly upgraded these eavesdropping facilities, and gaining access to them could be a major advantage for China. A Biden administration official said Beijing has been spying on the U.S. from Cuba since 2019. It's unclear if the Chinese spy base is among the 4 sites identified in the CSIS report. Cuba is a prime location for eavesdropping. It's less than 100 miles from Florida and nearby 7 U.S. military installations. That includes space launch centers, the headquarters of the U.S. Southern Command, plus naval and Air Force bases. U.S. intelligence says Beijing has been looking for a military installation in Cuba. And according to former U.S. intelligence officials, access to a spy facility in Cuba could make Beijing better able to identify targets to strike in the U.S. in the event of a conflict. One previously uncovered listening post is located near El Salao, Cuba. CSIS found that construction on it started in 2021. Once complete, it could be used to monitor communications from a U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay, just 70 miles away. Getting access to this outpost would be a major boost for Chinese spying efforts. Zooming in, images reveal a control building as well as foundations for 16 vertical antennas around it. Cuba has a history of hosting espionage operations against the U.S. The Soviets built a spy base in Cuba during the Cold War. Putin shut down the facility in the early 2000s. The communist country is embroiled in an economic crisis. Beijing has been providing assistance to Cuba and agreed to forgive some of its debt. Joining us now to discuss the suspected Chinese spy bases in Cuba is retired Brigadier General Robert Spalding. He's also a national security analyst and author of Stealth War and War Without Rules. General Spalding, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
thanks, great to be back.
Now, a new report from the Wall Street Journal says that satellite images show suspected Chinese spy bases in Cuba are expanding. How concerning is this?
Well, it's very concerning. In fact, when people used to ask me what I thought might be a preemptive maneuver vis-a-vis a war in Taiwan, I thought, it is highly possible that we could see something perhaps emanating from Cuba, some kind of disruption. So I do believe that China, it just indicates that China's military is beginning to expand where it goes. But more importantly, I think it does create a foothold in a very close space away from the United States that could potentially be used to to create a distraction in the event of a Taiwan invasion. So, it's very reminiscent, in fact, of the first Cold War, because if you remember, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis. So, I'm not surprised at all that we're starting to see the Chinese, enhance a sub base in Cuba.
Expanding on that, a White House official said that Beijing has been spying on the U.S. from Cuba since at least 2019. Now, given that, what kind of information can Beijing get from there?
Well, a lot of what they're getting is whatever the Atlantic Fleet is doing. And so it's a good opportunity for them to look at Atlantic Fleet operations and really understand Navy tactics, techniques, and procedures. A lot of intercepts of military communications is primarily what they would be looking to do.
Now, to your earlier point, given the tensions we are seeing between the U.S. and China, how does what's happening in Cuba, fit into those potential military plans, especially an impending Taiwan invasion, perhaps? How does this fit in?
Well, I think it's part of the overall pattern of activity that you've seen from China. It's not just in Cuba. They're also increasing their aggressiveness around the Philippines, in the South China Sea, and to include Taiwan. And then, of course, when you consider the fact that, the Russia's invasion of Ukraine and Iran's support of Hamas and Hezbollah is all kind of related to their relationship with China. And, the next thing that you can probably expect, you've already started to hear some things out of North Korea. Putin just visited. So I think you're going to start to see some things there. But it's overall pattern of activity that indicates that, we're getting deeper and deeper into the Cold War. And I think it's very important that we're focused, and we don't want that war to turn hot. So that means that we have to be on our game. Otherwise, the Chinese could be convinced that we're unable to, essentially respond. And that's the key concern that I have.
When it comes to these suspected spy bases in Cuba, what can the U.S. do to either counter this or make sure they're not getting that information?
Well, it just requires the forces that could be under surveillance to monitor the transmissions, monitor their activities, ensure that they're not giving away any of their operational secrets. And I think that just makes it more difficult for the Navy to exercise and prepare for whatever may happen in the Indo-Pacific, in China's backyard.
General Spalding, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
The Treasury Department is zeroing in on fentanyl trafficking. Its goal is to hit the flow of money supporting the illegal trade. To do it, the department is sanctioning 2 Chinese men for allegedly laundering money for the infamous Sinaloa drug cartel. Let's dive in.
The U.S. Treasury Department sanctioned 2 Chinese and 1 Mexican national on Monday. That's for allegedly laundering money for Sinaloa, the drug cartel that's largely responsible for the fentanyl crisis that has taken tens of thousands of American lives. One of the defendants, Beijing Tong, allegedly went to Mexico 4 years ago to sign contracts to launder the cartel's drug money. The 2 Chinese defendants are still in China. Both are part of a Chinese money laundering organization based in the U.S. There have been a growing number of such groups in recent years. The Justice Department charged the 2 Chinese men along with 22 others in June. Some of the defendants are cartel associates. Others are members of Chinese currency brokers. The DOJ accused them of laundering $50 million in drug profits.
Now we turn to southern China, where flooding, landslides, and rising river levels not seen for decades are wreaking havoc. Torrential rain has caused flooding and triggered landslides in southern China, threatening the lives of millions. In Hunan province, rivers have swelled to their highest water level in 7 decades. Local roads have turned into rivers, and boats have replaced cars for navigating the area. In one county, more than 340,000 residents were evacuated. Forecasters say the torrential rainfall is expected to ease on Wednesday in the middle and lower reaches of the Yangtze River. The U.S. and Panama have signed an immigration deal that aims to close the Darien Gap. The treacherous jungle passage connects Colombia and Panama and is a key route for migrants hoping to reach the U.S., including those from China. Panama's new president was sworn in on Monday. He said Panama will no longer be a transit country for illegal immigration. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the immigration deal.
Panama's new president, Jose Raul Mulino, took office on Monday, promising to curb illegal immigration.
I won't allow Panama to be an open path for thousands of people who enter our country illegally, supported by an international organization related to drug trafficking and human trafficking.
Mulino's new foreign minister signed a memorandum of understanding with the U.S. after the address. The U.S. agreed to cover the cost of repatriating migrants who enter Panama illegally in the deal. The memorandum also says the U.S. would support Panama with equipment, transportation, and logistics to enforce immigration laws. Panama's government says the memorandum allows closing off illegal immigration through the Darien Gap. The mountainous rainforest region connects South and Central America and is a dangerous route for migrants hoping to reach the U.S. Panama's National Migration Service says more than 500,000 people crossed the corridor last year, most from Venezuela, Ecuador, Colombia, and China. This year, more than 190,000 people have already crossed. Mulino also promised Monday to boost job and economic growth while addressing Panama's debt. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
The U.S. has revoked 8 licenses this year that allowed companies to sell products to Chinese telecom giant Huawei. According to a Reuters report citing the Commerce Department, these licenses included low-technology components widely available in China, such as touchpad and touchscreen sensors for tablets. Huawei made shockwaves across China last August after it rolled out a new phone powered by a semiconductor made by Chinese chipmaker SMIC. The product led to a sales boost, which was up a staggering 64% in the first 6 weeks of 2024. Both Huawei and SMIC were blacklisted by Washington, with officials citing concerns of espionage by the Chinese Communist Party. China-controlled electric car maker Polestar is looking to offset tariffs imposed by the U.S. and the European Union. The decision comes after the company reported an operating loss in the first quarter this year. Polestar spokesperson said the plan won't indicate job cuts, but it could trigger other moves like cost cuts across the supply chain. Owned by Chinese automaker Geely, the Swedish company builds most of its electric vehicles in Chengdu, China. But going forward, Polestar's upcoming models will be manufactured in the U.S. and South Korea. Norway has arrested a citizen for allegedly spying for China. The person's identity has not been made public.
Media reports say the suspect is accused of serious intelligence activities involving state secrets. He denies being an agent for China. The suspect is scheduled for a court hearing today. Europe has been on alert about Chinese espionage activities. The British Foreign Ministry summoned the Chinese ambassador in May, saying Chinese espionage and cyber attacks are unacceptable. According to the head of British Intelligence and Security Agency, GCHQ, China poses an increasing cyber risk, and China is her agency's top priority. The remark comes after a major breach of a payment system used by the British Armed Forces. The UK suspects China is behind the hack. Beijing denies the accusation. Over in the US, Chinese hackers also targeted over 20 American pipeline operators. Officials warn the China threat is closing in.
Over $600 million worth of ecstasy drug precursors from China seized at an Italian airport Monday. The shipment weighs over 6 tons and contains enough material to produce over 60 million MDMA pills.
The Italian police said 2 Chinese nationals have been arrested in the Netherlands, and an Italian businessman in Milan is now under investigation. The shipment was destined for a company headquartered in Milan before heading to the Netherlands. Illegal Chinese drug shipments are also on U.S. watch lists. In April, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, seized over 1,000 pounds of drug precursors from China. The kind of powder that was found can be used to make methamphetamine and cocaine.
That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for 3 years. If you'd like to support us, consider donating. Find us at donorbox.org/China-in-focus or subscribe to our partner platform Epic TV, where you can watch our full episodes. Just click the link down below. Here's what to look out for in our second half. Free trade or unfair trade, the U.S. is taking measures to protect its automakers from Chinese competition. That's as they contend with massive state subsidies from Beijing. Idaho Congressman Russ Fulcher hopes to level the playing ground.
We believe in not just free trade, but fair trade as well.
A critical material found in iPhones, computers, electric cars, and even weapons, rare earth metals are a hot spot in the U.S.-China tech race. Beijing now trying to tighten its grip on the critical supplies. Is the U.K. helping Chinese army grow stronger? New details show the U.K. sold equipment to China that could have military implications on top of its civilian selling points. More on that after the break here on China in Focus. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. See you tomorrow.